Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about sleep helping with PTSD. Ooh, isn't that a thinker? So luckily here I have Dr. Barry who's going to be helping us think about this in a whole new light. So thankfully I thank you for coming onto my show, Dr. Barry. Thank you for helping us think about this topic in a new way so that we can really marinate on how really sleeping can be a good focus in our daily lives now. So I guess what does sleep make you think about?
So, in relationship to the topic of, sleep and PTSD, we're talking about a biological process that goes on in the brain. And usually, when someone says problems in PTSD, they think psychological, not
Yeah.
biological.
Yeah.
So, they'll talk about their nightmares, they'll talk about insomnia, and those are very relevant, and those do need special treatments. But what we learned a long time ago was that most PTSD patients who are chronic, they've had the problem a long time, they've had sleep problems a long time, something else is going on in their brain and in their breathing that's creating a difficulty that won't let them heal.
Yeah.
So some people say, well, go to a therapist and get psychotherapy for your PTSD or take this sleeping pill. I mean, different things like that. But what we learned is their brain is actually much more active at night in a way that's not healthy
Mm.
because the brain is supposed to be sleeping. The brain is supposed to be going through different brainwave patterns that allow a person to get restorative sleep, meaning they're going to feel better the next day. So lots of PTSD patients walk into clinics all over the world and say, I've got this problem. The doctors say, okay, well, here's some pills. And they come back a couple of weeks later, well, here's some more pills. And they come back a month later, and here's some more pills. And it just goes on like this for years and decades.
Yeah.
And many of these people end up becoming suicidal because they can't ever get control of the sleep. And nobody ever says to them, hey, have you thought about getting a sleep study and finding out if there's something going on with your sleep? And that's what we learned back in the 1990s. This is like 30 years ago, that
Hmm.
most PTSD patients with chronic sleep problems absolutely unequivocally need to get tested in a sleep lab or at least get a sleep test.
Wow, that is truly interesting because we don't realize, how beneficial sleep is for us in just a general sense. So the fact that if you have this psychological condition and, that's what the doctors are telling you, that it's all psychological. I mean, we have to think about our brain also affects the rest of our body and how it operates. So if we
Right.
don't even put that two to two together,
Right.
then we will never understand the fact that sleeping truly does benefit us in that aspect of PTSD. So, I mean, would it recommend, well, I guess it would depend on the sleep test, but is it usually just training yourself to sleep longer or like how does that necessarily work?
It's a great question because it brings up the idea of, are we talking about the hours of sleep or are we talking about the quality of the hours of sleep?
Yeah,
And it
that's a good point.
turns out it's the quality. The
Oh,
quality is far more important than the number of hours.
huh,
Now, if we come back to you said a moment ago about the brain, that's the secret. So most people don't realize this, but let me spell it out quickly so that people can remember this. It's very memorable. If you don't sleep,
okay.
or if you have poor sleep, something's wrong with your sleep, you are having brain damage. And so people don't like to hear that word. They're like, what do you mean brain damage? So let me say it again. Brain damage. I truly mean brain damage. I mean that your memory, your concentration, your attention, your emotional processing, your imagination, your creativity, all of it is affected by bad sleep. Yes, you can say there's some people who don't get enough sleep, but that's not what we're talking about. Mostly, we're talking about these individuals have very, very bad quality sleep. Their sleep, the simplest way to say it is, it doesn't get deep enough. And it turns out if your sleep doesn't get deep enough, you're going to have even more brain damage. And that brain
Wow.
damage has been documented in scientific research showing that this is a risk factor that actually leads to dementia because the individual is not getting restorative sleep.
That's truly interesting, but I believe it because I seen something just recently where this lady, she was working very long hours, and she lived very far, so just the commute back and forth to home and to work was just extremely heavy on her, where she barely slept for like 5 hours. Less than that, like 3 or 2, right? And then she was young, she was 35 and diagnosed with brain cancer because the
Mm.
chemical imbalance in her brain was unable to sustain itself and she developed it and then she was bound to die. You know what I mean? And things like that. So I was just like, that's really interesting. And the fact that you're bringing it up, how we need to sleep deeper, you know what I mean? That quality. So is it more of that REM sleep? You need to go in that REM sleep for a longer period of time?
Well, there's two portions of sleep that are the most important. The
Okay.
first half of the night is called the deep delta stage 3 non-REM sleep.
Okay.
And then the final third of the night is called the more REM sleep. And in the middle third is, you know, mixture of things. But in general, you start out with more deep in the beginning and then more REM towards the second half. And both of them are critical. Both of them are crucial. If either of them or both of them are damaged, and by damaged, I mean thrown out of cycle. Like if you go into deep sleep and you have a breathing event and the breathing event kicks you out of that stage of sleep, well, when you get back to sleep, that doesn't mean you automatically go into deep sleep. It might take you a few minutes of wasted time to get back into deep sleep. REM sleep is tricky because in the second half of the night, when you have more REM, that's when you have the worst breathing events.
Huh.
So the sleep breathing events, which is what we're talking about in most of the PTSD patients, call it sleep apnea, sleep disordered breathing, upper airway resistance, various terms. That breathing event knocks the person out of that sleep stage. And now the person has got to like find a way to get back into that sleep stage, which sometimes might happen in a minute, but it might happen in 5 minutes or 15 minutes or an hour or never. And so both of these stages, like the deepest sleep in the beginning of the night, that's where most of the brain damage is going to occur if it's not happening because there's a system in the brain that cleans out the waste matter. And it
Okay.
does that in the first third of the night in that deep sleep. If the deep sleep isn't there, then you aren't cleaning your brain. The study just came out a month ago. I published this on my free Substack website called fastasleep.substack.com, where they showed that Ambien, the drug Ambien that everybody talks about,
Yeah.
it seems to interfere with the brain cleaning itself during the night.
Well then.
And so if it's doing that, you could argue that Ambien will one day prove to be a risk factor for people getting dementia or other
Yeah.
cognitive problems because it's not letting the brain clean. Now, the second part of the night is the REM, and the REM is very important because it helps us with emotional processing and learning how to adapt and cope. The sleep breathing problems are horrible in REM.
Hmm.
REM is very, very difficult to breathe as well as other stages of sleep. So it's very common that if you've got a breathing disorder, you'll be waking up in the final third of, you'll be saying, "What? Why did I wake up? What's wrong with me?" You go to the doctor, and the doctor say, "Oh, well, you must be depressed.
Yeah.
You must have anxiety. You must have PTSD. Let me
Yeah.
give you another drug. Let me raise the
Hmm.
dosage of the drug." And the person tries this for months or years. It doesn't work, or it works a little bit, but it's not helping them get the REM sleep. And so they lose out on that. That's why this sleep disordered breathing theory that we discovered in the 1990s, began publishing on it regularly ever since, even put a paper in the Lancet journal in 2019
Wow.
describing all of this. It's so many people who walk in the door to a sleep center and say, well, I've got insomnia. I say, okay, I know you have insomnia. I know that you think that's psychological, but we're going to test you. And there's a 90% chance we're going to find out you've got a breathing problem too. And people just don't want to hear this because they go, oh, do I have to wear a CPAP mask or what do I have to do? Bottom line is it's a very big deal. It's an epidemic.
Yeah.
Most doctors don't know about it. And your listeners will be very fortunate if they, you know, among other things, they could buy a copy of my book, Life Saving Sleep, which goes all over this material.
Yeah.
And my website, has a lot of information at barrykracowmd.com.
Yeah.
And you can learn about this and realize that this is a big, big deal for people that are trauma survivors who have been diagnosed with PTSD.
Oh, absolutely. So do you think that during the day, just practicing more breathing can help you in this process so that when you're ready to go to bed at night, it kind of just stimulates it or just activates it or just I mean, does that help in any sort?
It's a great question, and everybody asks that because it
Mhm.
seems so natural. Like you
Right?
go, you like if I went for a long walk or I went for a jog or I went on the
Yeah.
treadmill, wouldn't that make my airway stronger? And I think you argue that it would do that. Unfortunately, though, when you breathe during the day and when you breathe during the night, you're talking about different systems in the body that kick in. And so this vulnerability that you have for what's called airway collapsibility is what leads to people having sleep disordered breathing. And a lot of people have been wondering about this, including ourselves, for decades now, as to whether or not PTSD
Yeah.
actually does something to your airway,
Yeah.
where it somehow makes it so you can't breathe as well while you're sleeping. Now, the alternative approach to what you're saying is not so much what you do at daytime, but when a person gets into this space and thinks about it, they'd like to have something to do. Like, this is a really interesting idea. What can I do? I can't run out and get a sleep study.
Yeah.
I tell people, and this is all again in my book,
Right. But
that you can use nasal strips, nasal dilators, nasal sprays. You can evaluate your nasal breathing. And it turns out that if a person improves their nasal breathing
hmm.
just within a week or two, they will usually start to sleep better. Now, that's
Hmm.
not the cure. That's not a
Yeah.
cure,
Yeah.
but it's remarkable how many people, just by working on what's called conservative early intervention, nasal strips, nasal sprays, and so forth, they'll realize not only that they're sleeping better, they're going to go, you know what? Maybe I do want to try that CPAP machine. I mean, if you're telling me I can just do this little stuff and I'm already sleeping better, how much better is it going to be when I get a really full breath? Because what happens with these PAP machines? There's a caveat, though. It's very important to hear. We stopped using CPAP 20 years ago. We discovered that CPAP, which stands for one pressure continuous, in one pressure, you breathe out. See, these sleep breathing events are very complex. You have them when you're breathing in, you have them when you're breathing out. So that's why people use CPAP because it's one continuous pressure. But it
Yeah.
turns out CPAP is too hard to use. It's very uncomfortable. It causes anxiety. In fact, in trauma patients, it can trigger claustrophobia and panic attacks.
Oh, absolutely.
So in 2005, we discovered there's a better PAP machine called Bilevel. And of course, I talk about it like crazy in my book and in all of my research. It's on my website. It's called Bilevel. It
Mm.
means you breathe in one pressure, very comfortable, because it's fun to breathe with these machines breathing in, but it's more
Mhm.
anxiety producing breathing out. So what does Bilevel do? Two pressures, it drops the pressure so that when you breathe out, it's not so uncomfortable. And we began using Bilevel in 2005, 20 years ago, put all our PTSD patients on it. They loved it. And there's actually now all these inventions out there of like more advanced bi-level machines. And we have seen tremendous. We published papers on PTSD patients who came to see us with their insomnia, their nightmares, um, their anxiety, their depression, and they'd go on bi-level compared to CPAP because they couldn't use the CPAP,
Yeah.
and they would actually demonstrate statistically significant improvement in their insomnia, in their nightmares, in the quality of their life, in feeling like everything was moving in a different direction just by doing what? Just by treating their sleep disordered breathing and not going crazy about, well, here's all the medicines you have to use for this problem.
Yeah, exactly. And then doctors trying to figure out what's wrong with you and then psychologically labeling you with all of these disorders and then prescribing more pills to try to calm it when in all actuality, all you have to do is just focus on how is your quality of sleep. Ladies and gentlemen, goodness gracious, get the book. You know what I mean? Get
Mhm.
the book and
Right.
focus on your breathing. I mean, if you're looking on a way to truly better yourself. I mean, this is, I think, the best way to do it is by just managing and focusing on the way that you're sleeping because people don't realize like your quality of sleep truly does mean a lot, especially if it can help with night terrors, with PTSD. I mean, goodness, my mom suffers with night terrors. This is something that I'm gonna tell her to do and get because
Right.
that is something that's been bothering her for the longest of years. And I always know when she had a night terror because the way she wakes up and the way she talks to me on the phone, like I could
Mhm.
hear it in her voice, like the grogginess, the tiredness, you know what I mean? The anger just because of the unnecessariness of just being disturbed at night. And I think
Mhm. Mhm.
people don't really think about that. People don't acknowledge the fact how much your
Right.
sleep can truly impact our well-being. And the fact that you said that it can cause, you know what I mean, dementia, Alzheimer's, all of these cognitive functions. I mean, our brain is so precious. I mean, the more that I learn about our how, oh my goodness, how amazing our brain is, the
Mhm.
more I'm okay with somebody saying I need a helmet. You know what I mean? Like I'm okay wearing a
Mhm.
helmet because it's like
Mhm.
I need to protect my noggin. Like I need to protect the
Mhm.
well-being of who I am because
Mhm.
it literally makes a big impact in your body, in your mind, how we act, how we talk, how we respond, how we receive things of life. And it's like once we realize, you know what I mean, it all starts with just getting a better good night's rest, making sure that your quality of sleep is well, making sure that you get enough airway, make sure it's the temperature is well in the room, making sure like you have, you know what I mean, the right scenario. I mean, making sure everything is good enough just so that you can go to sleep because man, we for so long were pushing the fact that, oh, we don't need sleep, we can sleep when we die. But in reality, it's gonna cause us to our death if we don't do something about it. Ah, and it sucks to know that time is catching up to us because man, we could really dive deeper into this if we really wanted to. You know what I mean? So, what can be some lasting words of wisdom that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Well, I think it's very important just to tag on to what you said there that, you know, there are still people that have psychological parts to this. And there's
Absolutely.
many people who still, can benefit from certain kinds of medicines. But the problem is much larger in that think about the nature of sleep and the respect it gets or the respect it doesn't get. And that's where the problem lies because we're sitting here having a very good conversation. It's informative, it's got some detail to it, but I guarantee you, many people will hear it and go, "Oh, well, that shouldn't be true." I mean, sleep just couldn't be that important. And see, the way you think and you spoke about it, you're getting it and you're saying, well, no, wait, no, sleep is really important. But no, the society, the medical community, the mental health professionals, and you know what that means then? That when you're trying to deal with this, you know what it's like if you're dealing with a health problem. You want the sense of support that your doctors or your family or your
Yeah.
friends or the nurses or whomever it is, physician's assistant, nurse practitioners, you want to know that they're thinking, oh, yeah, we want to help you with this. But that's not what's happening. This is something that's so do it yourself. That's why I do keep pushing the book,
Yeah.
Life Saving Sleep, because a person has to be able to learn
Yeah.
to respect sleep. And once you
Hmm.
say, gosh, I never thought it could be this important, and yet you pointed this out, How could your brain, which is this incredible organ in your body, how could it not need a rest? How could it need cleaning? Everything else in the body has to rest. Everything else in the body needs to be clean. So why wouldn't the brain be the same? And since it's the most important organ in the whole thing, why not have this thing called sleep? Now, when you go about it that way, you'd be the spokesman, spokeswoman, and people go, "Wow, she's really on target. She knows what we need." But I'm telling you, this is a part that is actually kind of a scandal that so many people do not respect sleep, and they think, "Oh, blah 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 blah," and once they learn that they have to respect it, it's nerve-wracking because everybody else around them is like, well, why are you so caught up in your sleep? Why do you think that's such a big deal? I mean, you must be really lazy. You must be looking for some excuse. So that is the hurdle. It's a
Yeah.
huge hurdle, and people need to know that there are people there that will support them. In fact, let me do one more self-serving thing. I have a coaching service on through my website, barrycrakowmd.com. And
Hmm.
you maybe who comes to me? People who have been dealing with other sleep doctors, mental health providers. They're saying, I just can't get the information I want to
Yeah.
solve my sleep problems, and I'm not getting any better. So I work with them and coach them to say, what is it that they're not educating you on, like we've had in this conversation?
Yeah.
So, wrapping up, the big things are one, a person really has to say, do I want to respect my sleep? Number two, once they do that, they've got to say, well, then I'm going to have to be honest about evaluating my own sleep quality. And once you do those two things, you respect your sleep and you assess your sleep quality, it's going to open up the doorways to magic because you're going to go,
Absolutely.
holy cow, this is affecting me. There's all this stuff I can do, stuff on the internet, there's stuff in books, there's stuff at sleep centers, and I can take the bull by the horns and I can tell people, I'm serious. I want to treat my sleep problems. Will you help me?
Yeah.
And it is a struggle. It is a struggle in our current society that doesn't appreciate what we've talked about so
Absolutely.
succinctly in this conversation.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. And I think one thing that made it real for me to take advantage of my sleep is that I realized it was my part of self-love. You know what I mean? Like, if I love myself enough, then I should be able to give
Mm,
myself rest. I should give my mind rest. I should give my body rest. I should have a moments of peace. You know what I mean? So everybody knows. And if they don't know, they will know. You know what I mean?
mhm,
That after 7 p.m., like I'm done. My phone is off.
mhm,
Everything
mhm.
is off. It's away. It's not even by me. You know, if
Huh?
there's an emergency, you call 911 because I cannot be your emergency contact. You know what I'm saying? Because I will not answer my phone. I will not answer anything at all just because that's my time to go to sleep. I break down and I shut it down and I shut my kids down. You know what I
That's
mean? So after
respect. That's respect.
exactly. And they have to respect those boundaries. They have to
Right.
respect because this is my love. This is how I take care of myself. And if you
Right.
don't want to take care of yourself that way, well, then fine, do whatever you want to do, honey. But for me, in my house, we love ourselves and we're going to respect ourselves. And that's one thing that I hold on to. And I think when more people stand in that confidence, then that hurdle to like explain your situation to people won't be a hurdle because they'll understand that that's how you respect yourself, that's how you love yourself, and that's how you care for yourself. And just if you're doing it by sleep, goodness gracious, you deserve at least sleep. You know what I mean? Goodness gracious. And
Right.
ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this conversation, because how could you not, right? If how could you
Mhm.
not enjoy this conversation with how much good information Barry gave us today? Please check him out. I have his website on the access to this audio and in YouTube under the description. Boom, click it, and it goes directly to his website, and you can find so much great content like this book and like so many other books. He even has a book to help with children's sleep. Like, goodness gracious, parents out there, check him out. Let's learn the quality of sleep that we need and let's bestow it on the next generation so this won't be a problem, so that the dementia, Alzheimer's, all of this memory, cognitive disorders, you know what I mean, can at least lessen throughout the years if we just teach our next generation how to sleep properly. You know what I mean? How to care for themselves properly. You know what I mean? That's the least we can do. The least we can do for the next
Mhm.
generation, you know? So with that being said, go check them out and always, always keep thinking, y'all.